By the time you've seen this, the Shadowlands will have been upon us, and we are off and running in our race to defeat the jailer. Are you doing everything you're supposed to be? What's up, everybody? My name is Jordan. If you know me through Twitch, you know me as I'm Jerman, and today we're going to be taking a look at all of the things that we need to be doing in this first week of Shadowlands. Full disclosure, I am recording this on Monday before Shadowlands launches. It's about 10:30 in the morning. So we are going to be looking at, though, the things you should be doing this week as I speak to you from the past, and making sure that you're up to date on what you need to be doing to maximize your time in World of Warcraft. Now, if you're thinking, Jordan, this sounds awfully similar to the last video you made a week or two ago, that's correct. It is awfully similar. It's almost the exact same thing, except a lot has changed in those 2 weeks. I thought 2 weeks out, we're not going to see any major shifts in systems or anything like that, but Ian Hazzikostas likes to throw us for a loop, and he has changed a lot of the ways and a lot of the gating behind the systems that are able to be done. So I thought it was appropriate that on this week of Shadowlands launch that you have a new, fresh, updated guide on how to make sure that you're maximizing your time, what is different, what is not different. There's a lot less rush that you had to do Monday night, early Tuesday morning, and that kind of affects a little bit what we have to do this week. And maybe there's some stuff that you didn't know about, or some things that came up, and as things have developed, we want to make sure that we talk about it. So without further ado, let's jump into the things that we need to talk about for the Shadowlands. As we talked about in our video last week, there's a lot that has to be done on a daily basis inside the Maw. And as you'll recall, the Maw is a scary in-game zone that features monster farming, rare farming, world events to collect Stygia, which is the in-game resource used to purchase your sockets, and you do those from Venari, who you have to gain reputation with. So, as a quick overview, make sure every day that you're capping out the experiences that you can do in the Maw by maximizing your Eye of the Jailer debuff and gaining the Stygia and reputation so that you don't fall behind in the socket race. Now, again, there is no catch-up to this system with Stygia and reputation farming from Venari, so make sure that you're doing this daily. This is one of those things that even if you can log in briefly on Thanksgiving or quickly over the weekend or Black Friday, make sure you do that and get this part done, because there is no catch-up to this. And if you're a Mythic Raider and you want to have a head start on the socket game, this is an important time for you to be doing that. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Second big system that you're going to have a beat on as we go throughout the Shadowlands process here in this first week is maximizing your use of the Covenant system. Inside your Covenant, you'll find weeklies, you'll find dailies, you'll find a mission table, which I know everybody's a big fan of, but it's important that you keep these features going and up to date. For example, you need to complete your Covenant dailies, you need to farm anima to upgrade buildings, all of this to make sure that your renown progresses and that you get the anima needed to continue progressing these systems which reward both cosmetic and fun items, but also player power as well, with what your soulbind trees and unlocking different abilities on those as well. World quests can be used for emissary purposes. World quests give reputation, they give anima, they give conduits. So it's important that you're bouncing around to the various areas to pick up these things that look good. There's not a reason to do a bunch of world quests unless a reward looks particularly tasty outside of what's required of your emissaries, but it is likely and recommended that you do spend some time doing these weeklies and dailies, at least this first week, so you don't fall behind in this resource gathering phase. Now, catch-up is possible here. Renown is a catch-up system, so you can't fall permanently behind. It will just front-load the work you'll have to do next week. Anima and stuff like that, though, these weekly quests that grant you increased abilities in your Covenant system, ease of travel being one of them, for example, these are things that it's just beneficial to have them early. So you want to make sure you're working in these Covenant systems to catch them up. Now, again, like I said, catch-up systems are in place. Not really a big deal if that's one of your things that you need to cut, because, again, it's a holiday week. There's a lot going on and you're traveling. So the Covenant system is one of the things that's movable. One of the biggest changes from our video 2 weeks ago is Torghast Tower of the Damned. In that video, we talked about how you're going to run 2 wings 8 times each. In fact, that's actually been drastically reduced to 2 wings 3 times each, because Wizards of the Coast is not the maker of this game. It is Blizzard Entertainment. Blizzard Entertainment wants you to limit the amount of time you spend in Torghast early on. You will not be able to make a legendary in this first week as we previously estimated, but at the trade-off of not having to do 16 runs of Torghast and instead only having to do 6, I'd say it's a pretty good trade-off, and it'll increase our enjoyment of Torghast Tower longer. You're going to be in Torghast so that you can get the Soul Ash to make your legendaries. That being said, there is no catch-up mechanic still for the Soul Ash. So this is one of those things that you absolutely want to make sure you do this week so that you can make the earliest legendary possible and maybe start making a backup legendary for Mythic Plus or something like that. It's very important that you get into Torghast. So if you're like, man, I can only do one thing this week after leveling to 60, it should be making sure that you get into Torghast Tower of the Damned. Another layer of optimization for all of you raiders out there is that you want to get in and do your 8 Mythic Zeros. There are 8 dungeons in Shadowlands, and that means there are 8 Mythic difficulty dungeons for you to complete on the first week. If you'll remember, Mythic Zeros share a 1-week loot lockout, so you can only do them once a week for benefit of loot purposes, and it's important that you're going to do this to raise up your item level from those questing greens and blues that you'll have after hitting 60. Now, these are puggable, so if you don't have a guild or you don't have a static group of friends that are good for Mythic Plus, don't worry. These are great ways to get out and meet so many people and do some pugs. Might take you a couple wipes longer than if you had a steady group, but they're definitely doable. It's not like we're talking push and high keys here. We're just doing Mythic Zeros. And these should be completable, if not, albeit a little bit slower than you would like at the very beginning of when you hit 60. You should be able to go in these and take down the bosses. It will take a while, but you should be able to do that. And I actually recommend doing this before you do your Torghast runs, just so that you have the gear from the Mythic Zeros when you go into Torghast, and that should help those runs there be a little bit quicker. These runs have opened up on Tuesday, so depending on when you're viewing this, they might not be out yet, but make sure that you get these done in this first week, because there's not an opportunity to go back and get this loot lockout back. Now let's say that you do your Mythic Zeros, you do your Torghast, you're doing your Covenant systems, you hit 60 on a bunch of your characters, you're in the mall every day, and you still have a little bit more WoW time, because why would you go to sit around with a bunch of people when there's a pandemic going on? There are things that you can do to maximize your time and give you more things to do. The first of which is heroics. Heroic dungeons aren't typically a thing we talk about in the Mythic rating in-game, but after you do your Mythic loot lockout on these characters, you can go back and actually farm the heroics to fill in the pieces you didn't get from your Mythic Zero runs. Now this is important because it'll raise your item level up, make things like Torghast Tower of the Damned easier, it'll make your future Mythics easier for next week. It just gives you a bump in your gear. These are spammable, so even if you don't get the piece you want, you can go back and do them again. So again, this is like a time filler thing, not important really in the slightest, unless you're just like, I need something to do. Go ahead and queue up for a dungeon and get yourself into heroics to fill out those gear pieces. Another thing that's not required, but is probably helpful, is that you want to farm honor. There's actually a lot of PvP rewards that are decent for PvE that are behind the honor system. So farming your arenas, farming your battlegrounds, are actually a good way to spend your time if you're done with all of the other big things we talked about. So let's put these into a priority order. How should we be doing these things? I kind of said them all out of order. And let's quickly just break down what's the most important way for us to be accomplishing these tasks from highest to lowest priority. Because there is a holiday going on this week, it's important that we prioritize, right? Well, the first thing I would tell you to do is make sure you do Torghast Tower of the Damned. Again, Soul Ash is not subject to a catch-up requirement, so if you just don't do Torghast this week, you lose access to the Soul Ash, and you're behind on making your legendary, which obviously won't feel very good. The second thing I would say to do is make sure you're upgrading your Covenant system and keeping that process going. There is a catch-up here, so you can kind of flux on this if you want, but I do think getting those things caught up so you don't have to catch up later is probably a good thing. Tied with that, around the second place, is making sure you do your Mythic Zeros. Gear is going to come a little bit harder this expansion, so it's important that we get into those Mythic Zeros, get our loot, and get our character upgraded a little bit so it makes the future weeks a little bit easier and you don't see the gear drop off and your player power be too weak for content that you want to do as you push higher layers of Torghast later in the week. At the bottom of all this are the weekly gap fillers of your heroics, of your battlegrounds. These are things that are, again, just time fillers. If you've done your maw grinding for the day, if you've done your Covenant system for the day, it's important that you get in there and you do these other things if you have WoW time, but at the end of the day, you're not going to remember in 2 or 3 weeks from now if you did or didn't. If you also daylight as a PvPer and nightlight as a PvEer, you're obviously going to want to get in there and get your PvP rewards, because that versatility in your gear is going to be really helpful. But that notwithstanding, it is a removable thing if you're feeling the holiday grind. Hey, that's it for this week's video. Sorry for the quick one, but I really want to get into playing Shadowlands and start focusing on getting the last day prep done for my character. Just like you, I'm really excited. Big thanks to Medivh and to Wowhead. They were the primary sources for this article. There is a link to the Medivh spreadsheet down below, as well as the Wowhead article with Ian Hazzard-Kostas, which explains some of the big changes between my big video a couple of weeks ago and then what's actually happening on live. If you enjoyed this content, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so that you can get notified of more stuff like this. In the comments, please tell me how your Shadowlands launch is going. Are you having fun? Is it living up to the hype for you? I want to know about it. If you didn't like this video, well, tell me that too. I'm sure you will. If you want to talk about this stuff live, if you want to see how Shadowlands is going, and maybe you're waiting to check it out, or maybe you just want to talk about this conversation in real time, check me out on twitch.tv/I'mJerman, where you can find me every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. There's a link to that down in the description below, and I would really like to see you there. But in the meantime, happy gaming.